Alright guys, well bear with me today. I didn't get my sprayer out of the shed like I wanted to. Today I decided I'm going to run and go get my herbicide. Want to get it today. Well, it's semi-nice. Get it put away. I'm just going to get the burn down stuff. I'm going to hold off on the in-crop, the post-emerge until until I get a little bit closer. So I'm in the Volkswagen now. I just did some figuring. I can fit it in the car here. A little bit nicer of a drive in the car, I guess, than my pickup truck. So I want to get the pre-herbicides today. Probably be about 1,000 pounds. I'm pretty sure the the old Volkswagen here can hold 1,000 pounds. So I'll get back with you when I get back. Alright guys, I'm off the main highway here. I'm on one of the back country roads, so it's a little bit easier to film and talk here. Anyway, the reason I'm not taking my Dodge today is I was looking at it the other day. It has to go for some work. Anybody that knows Dodges, you know those steel plates, those caps that go underneath your axle, on the rear axle, that hold the leaf springs and the block for the leaf springs. Right back on the axle, there's your leaf spring, then a block, then there's long U-bolts, and then the U-bolts go down around your axle, and then there's a steel plate underneath that holds everything into place. On my Dodge, with the amount of miles that are on it and all the salt, those steel plates have rusted away to the point where they're almost just pieces of tin there, and the one actually tore. So I do have, my buddy is getting me those plates and the new U-bolts, so my Dodge has an appointment at the garage probably next week, and got to get that taken care of. And I am not going to put any kind of weight in the bed of that truck, because I think if I put any kind of weight in there and hit a bump, basically what's going to happen is that the plate's going to tear underneath the axle, and then your leaf springs are just free to go any which way they want, just about. So it's just something I just noticed. Have to get it taken care of here, because I do have some things to haul with that truck. So like I say, that's why we're taking the car today. And like I said, the car, 1,000 pounds, I don't know, that's, you haul 3 or 4 people in the car, that could equal 1,000 pounds. So I'm just by myself today, so just fold the seats down and I can get pretty many jugs of herbicide inside the car with me. But anyway, interesting story today as I'm headed out. I don't know if you guys listen to any kind of talk radio, and if it's something you guys do during the day. I know a lot of farmers do, because a lot of the radios, all you have is AM radio in the tractors. Or anyway, kind of an interesting story today I heard. I don't know if anybody listens to Dave Ramsey. I do pretty often, as far as money advice and how to live debt-free, all that kind of stuff. I just got in my car to go today and turned the radio on, and sure enough, there was a farmer and his wife that called into the show. And this guy is 30 years old and asking if he should declare bankruptcy. He was doing his rundown of all of his debt and had almost $500,000 in equipment debt, in farm equipment debt. He owed his dad around $50,000. He had a couple other things, but it came out to almost $700,000 or more worth of debt. And the guy did not own the farm he was on. It was leased. So that really got me thinking, because I don't own the farm that I'm on also. It is a rented farm. And I can't imagine, I don't know, I can't imagine spending $475,000 in equipment. So basically, just a little lesson here, little background of how I'm doing things. So I don't own any land. It's not something I have as far as an asset. It's something that I don't have that you can borrow against. It's rented. So where is my value if I have to leave? What do I walk away with if I don't have land or any type of money or savings in the bank? Basically, it's my equipment, it's my assets. So Little bit of reason why I am running a lot older equipment. If I would want to today, I could go into the Farm Credit Office and borrow $500,000, and all I'd have to do basically is sign my name. I mean, the credit today is just seems like it's so easy to get. And I didn't do that when I started. I didn't want to have mountains and mountains of debt like that because I don't have the assets to back it up in the end. I don't have any land to fall back on. I don't own my house. I don't have any type of equity in my house. So if I would have to quit and leave for any reason at all, the thing that is going to help carry me through if I have to buy a house somewhere, or if I have to move or find other living accommodations, the only thing that's going to save me basically is my farm equipment. Making sure there's no debt against it, and buying things less than retail, trying to pick stuff up under what it would be charged at a dealer's lot, and basically putting value back into my equipment. Little stuff like fixing it up, making sure everything works, painting it, tires, that kind of stuff. So that way, if I would ever have to give it up, or if circumstances would change and I'd have to leave, I can basically sell my equipment, even private sale, one piece at a time. And hopefully the idea behind it, the theory, is to get more than I paid for it. And that can be done very easily on the 560. That can be done very easily on the 395, the 986, my baler, my hay bine, all that stuff I was able to pick up at a reasonable price. And I was able to add value to that stuff. So my assets now, compared to what I spent to buy them, my assets are worth more than my original investment. And that's kind of why I'm doing it this way. That's why you're not going to see brand new tractors on my farm. You're not going to see fancy four-wheel drive equipment. You're not going to see a combine unless I can get it at a reasonable price. It just doesn't make sense for me to be in that kind of situation like this poor guy. Imagine being 30 years old and owing almost $700,000 in debt, and the farm isn't going to pay the bills. That can be pretty tough. That there is a situation that I absolutely would not want to ever get myself into. So just a little lesson there. And I guess this guy did some custom harvesting and some other things. Crap, that road is closed. Well, I guess I got to go the long way. I forgot that road was closed. So now I got to drive another 6-7 miles. And I hope I make it in time because it's 4 o'clock and the guy closes at 5. All right, anyway, so that's just a little bit of advice I can give as far as how I'm doing things on my farm. It may not be the flashiest, it may not be the nicest. Anything that is nice and in good shape is all value added on my end. And basically, the way the ag is today, you just can't throw tons of money and figure it's gonna work itself out in the end. It's just not gonna happen right now. So I don't know, guys, it just has me thinking. It's a real interesting topic, and I'm glad I heard that just as soon as I turned on the radio. It got me thinking, and all I can do is share with you guys kind of how I'm doing things here. And I probably have more equipment than I actually need to do what I'm doing. But like I said, with not having any land assets, not having a house or any type of deal, if I ever get into trouble, my only savior is going to be my equipment. And I'm not going to go out and buy equipment and have it depreciate too quickly on me. Like the minute you buy a newer tractor, they go down in value so fast compared to these tractors from the 70s and 80s. Some of them are appreciating. They're going for more than they were brand new back in the 70s. So it's a little bit on purpose as to why I'm doing things the way I'm doing them. Just because of that situation. This is a long-term, hopefully going to be a long-term thing for me, and the only way I can see it staying a long-term thing is if I'm smart about the money, smart about the income. On a small scale, you just can't play the game of keeping up with the Joneses. You can't just dump money into into things that aren't going to give you a return on your investment. So, all right, I'm getting into some traffic here, so I'll end it. I'll meet up with you in a little bit. All right, guys, I guess this is just going to be a video, kind of a rant video about this topic about money and farming. So at the end of the year, I have a accounting firm that I have hired to do my accounting. It's through the Pennsylvania Farm Bureau, and the guy comes out to your house, and basically you give him all your receipts, and he enters it all into the computer, works his magic, and comes up with the numbers. When he came the first time, I had all my expenses in one spot. I could tell him, I said, this is what I spent in fertilizer, this is what the seed costs were, this was from the custom work, this was what the herbicide was, this was my income. I had basically everything laid out for him to make it easy. And he had told me, he said he was surprised at the way everything was organized, because he said that you would be surprised the amount of farmers that have no idea what their income or expenses are. They basically just let it up to him. At the end of the year, they'll just give him piles of paperwork, and he's got to put it all together and figure out whether they made money or if they didn't make money. I thought that was interesting, that a lot of farmers don't know what they spend and have no idea what their income or their expenses are. I'm sure it happens, and I'm not going to condemn anybody. You guys know me pretty well by now, but as far as how I'm doing things, I'm always trying to track that stuff, and I know what, basically I'll put it this way, I know what my income's pretty well going to be off of the farm depending on the weather. I was doing some estimating. They always say don't count your don't count your money before it's in the bank and all those other sayings, but I was doing some quick math come fall and trying to just do some estimated yields, and I came pretty darn close to what what I actually got out of it. So now, it was a very good year for corn and beans. The weather in the Northeast last year was absolutely perfect for corn and beans. I couldn't ask for a better year. We had all the rainfall we needed. It dried off at the right time, and I don't think the crops were under any type of stress, weather-related, the entire year. It never got up into the high 90s. We got an inch of rain every 2-3 days. It was just perfect for growing crops. I knew what my soil tests were. I knew what I was lacking, and I even had a crop agronomist come out and look it over, and the agronomist was pretty darn close. She had looked at my corn, and she averaged about 160 bushel to the acre, was what she came up with when she stopped at the farm and was looking at some of the cobs late in the summer. So she figured 160, and I did about 158. So like I say, it's easy to do some estimates with numbers like that, and the price of corn was pretty well set by the time fall was, so it wasn't too difficult for me to figure out my gross income from harvest. So I know what the farm can do depending on the weather. I know what it's capable of. My yields were a lot lower than I wanted them to be. I want to get that yields up a little bit, but I kind of have a reference as to what my income's going to be and about the best income that I can make. You're not going to really add a whole lot more income unless you either get your yields up or you pick up more ground. And depending on what kind of year this is going to be, it's a lot to ask to get 2 perfect years in a row as far as the weather. So I have no idea. We could run into a drought, and my yields could be, I could do everything right with my fertility plan this year. I could have everything right where it needs to be as far as the soil tests, and we could get a drought, and in the end I could actually end up with less grain than I did last year, even though last year I was lacking some fertilizer. So if you know what your capability is of your operation, if you kind of know what the max income is, that gives you a whole set of numbers to work with as far as what type of purchases you can make for the following year. A lot of things, you pretty well know your expenses. You know every year you're going to have to buy seed. You know you're going to have to buy fertilizer. Those expenses you can pretty well have. A lot of people prepay for their corn seed, so you already know what your seed's going to be for the following year. So with that being said, it's not really that difficult to figure out your profit. Now, like I say, there's many factors that are going to change that, depending on the weather, depending on if you get a nasty storm that knocks all your corn down, you get some disease in the soybeans. Any number of things can change the numbers overnight. But basically, if you know what your income's going to be, or pretty well you know the capacity of your land to provide you an income, I just can't justify spending more than that as far as upgrades on equipment. Like my story with this guy that had borrowed all that kind of money, I'm just trying to think to myself what kind of profit you need to have to be able to go $700,000 in debt. And my guess is pretty well he wasn't profiting, having a $700,000 profit. It was being run on debt. And there's a lot of farm operations that are run on debt, and a lot of guys do play that game. And I'm not going to condemn you guys either. Like I say, to each their own. Everybody can farm how they want to. I'm just trying to put my 2 cents into the discussion here on a small scale, when you don't have a huge income, when you're not in the hundreds of thousands of dollars on your balance sheet, you really have to focus more on the smaller numbers. So let's just say, I don't know, you know your income from last year. I just can't see myself spending more than my income from the previous year. It just isn't doable. You just can't run a business that way. It's not going to be sustainable. Sooner or later, the music's going to stop, and the only guys that are going to have a chair to sit in are the ones that don't owe more than the operation is worth, or even they get to the point where they owe more than the whole of all your assets and income can cover. And like I said, with the credit, don't think I'm just blowing smoke with the credit. The Farm Credit Agency told me that they offer operating loans anywhere from $1,000 all the way up to $1 million. And it's just unreal about how much money they'll hand out. The other thing is, and this kind of ties in with the 1980s farm crisis, well, I'm thinking about it here, the interest rates this year have gone up, what, 3-4 times, maybe 5 times the interest rates from the beginning of last year to this year. And those operating loans, you are on a variable rate interest. Now, if you have a regular loan, it's a fixed interest rate. But if you need more money to cover another year, and you have to go back to the Farm Credit Agency, and you've heard this in that 1980s farm crisis documentary that I had talked about earlier, it's the same deal that those farmers were getting into trouble with. They would need more money, and they were at a 5% interest rate, and if they wanted to borrow more money, they would have to refinance under the current interest rate, which was as high as 19-20% in some cases. So your interest, all of a sudden, it goes up how many percentage points, and before you know it, all you're doing is paying interest, and you're not putting anything in your principal, and that principal payments never go down, and you're not gaining any traction. You're just treading water, paying interest. So it's just something interesting while I'm thinking about this topic. It's the finances are so important with ag. It's you've heard people talk about it over and over again. It's not new, and it's not anything that I'm coming up with here. And I'm no expert on any of this stuff, so you guys can take it any way you want to take it. But as far as the hold on here, we gotta. So yeah, like I was saying, you've heard it said over and over again, farming is just like any other business. You have to run it just like you would a small business, if you have a pizza company and you're selling pizzas and you want a brand new pizza oven to be able to cook pizzas to serve to your customers, you've had a couple years, you know what your income's going to be, and you pretty well can figure on what you can afford to purchase. So if you will go out and buy a $500,000 pizza oven and your yearly revenue is only $30,000 profit, and that's all you have to work with, it's the same with farming. If you're only going to make heck, some guys, if you only have a $2,000 or $3,000 profit for the year, adding more debt isn't a measure of success. You've seen it in every valley. I've seen it many times in my life, the keeping up with the Joneses type of people, and it's easy to get into that. I've been envious of neighbors' equipment. Somebody buys a new tractor, you really get ambitious, and you say, I have to have my own new tractor too, and it's a vicious cycle. So just a little word of caution as best I can, and like I say, take it any way you want. Just some of my thoughts today, and I am just about here at the fertilizer or the herbicide dealer. So we're gonna end the video there, guys. Thanks for watching. I appreciate it, and I'll get back with you tomorrow.